Personalizing student engagement is only possible when enrollment management and Marcom are aligned. At Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College, Ryan Hogan's team uses Element 451 to improve student outcomes.
They love the AI functions where if they're coming up with an email campaign, they can ask it to help develop something and then they go in and edit that. They also really enjoy the use of the landing pages for the campaigns that we build. So not only do we design emails and things, but we can also have landing pages that can give information to our students. And so it really brings the team together. So our enrollment staff is helping identify what the issue is, and then the marketing and communication staff can collaborate with them in Element to provide the solution for the problem we're trying to solve.
Aligned teams create better experiences for students. Visit element451.com to learn how an AI-first student engagement platform fuels a smarter, more connected campus experience. Hi, I'm a higher ed social media manager, and I have a confession. My guest today, Grant Schol, Associate Director of Communication and Project Management for the Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Arkansas, has got me thinking about authenticity in a new way. Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. I'm Jenny Lee Fowler, award-winning social media professional, author, and podcast host, and a recognized voice across the social media marketing industry. Social media managers are navigating the wild, ever-changing world of higher ed communications, and I'm here to share the real stories and lessons behind the posts. Each episode explores the challenges, strategies, and untold moments that come with running social media accounts in today's digital landscape. Let's get into it. Grant, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into our topic for the day. But first, can you tell us how you got into higher ed social media?
Sure. It's kind of a roundabout story, I suppose. Sure. In my undergrad years, I managed a couple social media accounts just on my campus. I guess that would be like the main origin story. But my first professional full-time role, my first job out of college, I was a university photographer for another university here in Arkansas. And they put me in charge of the Instagram. And so
of course.
Yeah, no, exactly. Who better to share on a photo-heavy platform than the school photographer
Sure.
who was around everywhere? And then took a break from higher ed for a little while, and then came back to the University of Arkansas. When I started in 2021, I was a social media manager for the Sam and Walton College of Business here at the U of A. And so that was my, first full-time social media management position was that role. I was just looking to get back into higher ed, to be honest. So it wasn't like my grand plan, but it sort of happened.
As it does for a lot of us. You're not the only one. But okay, so we've been talking about authenticity and having, being authentic on social media channels for a while. But, you're the first person to mention to me that it might be more difficult, like this is more challenging for a brand that's sort of an inanimate object, right? It's not like a personal account. It's more like it's a brand account, right? I thought that was so interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, when we say authenticity, act authentic, what does that even mean? Right? Like everybody kind of has a gut feeling of what that means. And we definitely know when somebody's not acting authentic, right? But can we really tell if somebody is acting authentic? And for a brand, especially for an inanimate object like an institution or a university that has many different constituents, right? Like the university has its students, its alumni, its faculty, staff, but also the local community that it's found in, the state that it contributes to, the region, and the higher ed at large. And so there's so many different personalities, I guess, that you have to have. And so how it's difficult to have sort of split attention to um, cater to all of those audiences. So how can you do that whenever you have to meld them all together? And I'll be the first to say that, I don't have like a secret formula necessarily, but it is something that I'm fascinated with. And I'm also in a graduate program here at the University of Arkansas where I've done a little bit of writing about authenticity and how it's created through communication, and how there are some underlying theories that we can use to understand how it's created and then how we can meld it on our own, but not force it, right? It,
Yeah, totally. I feel like if you get like 10 social media managers in a row and you all ask them like define what authenticity is, you'll get 10 different definitions. And so, I've said, I might not be able to define it, but I know when I see it, based off of the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court justice that said that about porn. Like I might not be able to define it, but I know when I see it. So
yeah, exactly. That's the same with authenticity, especially
right,
when it comes
exactly.
to an institution. When you read something, especially, maybe something more serious, it's like you can tell if they're being authentic, right? If they messed up and they issue maybe an acknowledgement of maybe that they did something
Yeah.
wrong, we
And
can
I
read through it.
yeah, and I hate to say it, you could also tell when it's totally been taken over by the legal team, and it's just which can be cringe sometimes.
Yeah,
Although I know they're important, they're very important, but I think it's hard to get the feeling right with all the legalese, right?
yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think that can lead to people just they see those words and they're like, okay, they're just like checking the boxes.
Right, right,
And
right,
which,
right.
I mean, also like sometimes we have to. So it
Right.
is a fine line.
It is a fine
Um,
line. Yeah. And you have mentioned or said that it's even more important, probably now, to show that there's a person behind the account, right? And can you tell us how we can do that or do that better?
yeah. So I am very lucky in my position to be able to employ some interns. And I know that that's not possible for in many institutions. Thankfully, I have been able to do that. And so I have some social media interns that I use to create content. And I tell them, when I hire them, like, are you okay with being on camera? Because like you're going to have to be on camera so that it's not just account out there putting out beautiful pictures of campus or a graphic about an event. It's like, here's a student who actually goes to school here that students can recognize and see, telling them about something happening on campus or news that they need to know about, or interviewing another student who's, got some award or is going on a study abroad program or doing really cool research. It breaks the fourth wall and it allows people to step into it as well. And so I'm trying to create our accounts of to be not influencery, but like just sort of Billy on the Street esque,
Or
if you're
hu
familiar with that segment.
Yeah, and human, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's one example that you gave me earlier when we talked earlier, and that I really liked is that when you reach out to someone, or maybe you have to direct message someone, you actually
Yeah,
sign it your own name. Can you talk about that and tell me why you do that?
yeah, sure. So that's one thing that I started doing mainly out of like necessity because there were so many people managing the accounts, and so I wanted to see who was managing this conversation. But then it turned into we would get DMs from students like later, and they would address it as like, "Hey, Grant," because they thought that I was the only one that was managing the account, and so then they created this kind of relationship with me online where they're like, "Oh, there's an actual person behind this account who, like." Has feelings and is a human. And so I told my students, whenever you like have an interaction with somebody on the account, sign it as your name so that they know that first of all, it's less likely that they're going to like say something rude because there's an actual person. And it's not just some like AI bot that's responding or something. But it also gives them a name that they can fall back on. So if I am, meeting a student like, oh yeah, like I was working with Tyler, who's my intern, and he was so wonderful. We met, we shot this video and had a great interaction. It just brings students into the creation of the content where they're invested in it as well, because they're creating relationships through it.
And it sounds like there was sort of a shift in, is it perception? Like from your audience that you're engaging with is
Mhm. Yeah.
you
Yeah. I would say that there's definitely like, so whenever I took over the current accounts that I'm managing, there wasn't a whole lot of personality necessarily, mainly because previously they were just sort of trying to get things out because out of, necessity.
yeah. And
And
I think sometimes we caution against that because we don't want one person to represent to become the brand face, right? A lot of us are trying to avoid that. But I love that it doesn't have to be one person. And
Mhm.
I love that you're saying, do this to make sure to humanize it, to make sure
Yeah.
people understand that there's people,
Yeah. And
behind.
I also I sign it because I'm full-time staff, my students are not, but I still sign it as, Grant, Fulbright College, social media team. And so that they know that there's like a team of people that are behind this, where it's like there might be more than one person. And I have my students do the same. And I really don't like for them to use the word intern because I think that there's a negative connotation sometimes, which that could be a whole other maybe podcast
Oh
episode. But
yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I want them to also feel ownership, my students to feel ownership of the accounts, and so that they're proud of the content that we're putting out, because that will show, right? That plays also into the authenticity part. If the students that are creating the content are proud of it, then that will translate on the other end when students or people are consuming it, and because it'll resonate as more relatable, approachable, and hopefully generate more engagement or conversation or reach a wider audience.
Yeah, I know. I really like that. I am fortunate to have interns too, and I never say that they're an intern. I always say that you're part of the social media team. And if they create a video or if they create something, we always give credit. We always give credit to the creator. And I have them put their name, and I never have them put like intern. I just have them put MIT because they represent MIT at that time, right? They are part of our team. So I never really put out there that they're interns. I want them to think that they are, I mean, elevated sounds like a funny, but not less than, right?
Right.
Yeah, equal to a part of the team for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I love about working with students is they keep me grounded. So I think that also plays into the authenticity conversation. I am like solidly a millennial, and and like we have, a millennial audience in our alumni base, obviously. But right now, we're trying to attract, a lot of, you know, older Gen Z, but also Gen Alpha. And I can kind of hang with the Gen Z, but when it comes to Gen Alpha, I am scared of that. And
Yeah.
so I really rely on my students who understand and can speak kind of that language. And I maybe, yeah, to keep it fresh, like I think I give maybe a little bit too much latitude sometimes, but I it's paid off in the long run. Like we have like had consistent growth on our accounts. I'm, proud of it. We're a college within a university, so like I'm not expecting our accounts to be like tens of thousands, but for our campus, we have a pretty like decent following. I think
Yeah,
we've
totally.
captured almost all of our students, which I think is good. And that's my goal, is to capture just the students that are on our campus and incoming students as
Yeah.
a recruitment.
No, I think that's a great attitude. And I think that's one thing as, like, say, a manager or a director of when you have a team. And I think it helps to have that fresh, younger, like, perspective. And it's also I think it's helpful and healthy to go, look, I understand the strategy. I know social media, but as far as the trends and the new dialogue and the lingo go, I think it's okay to say, I need your help in this
Mhm.
space, you know, like
Yeah.
you guide me, you know, because I think that, you know, I'm not saying, well, it keeps us humble, but look, I mean, it's the nature of the business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also, I like using these sort of student positions as, a teaching opportunity, obviously, but a portfolio builder. I want the students that graduate and that have worked, on our team to be set up for success. And so that's why I treat them, as a full time staff member, even though maybe they only work, a handful of hours a week. Um, I want them to be held to the same level of quality standards. I really try to coach on content like calendar and like, hey, like we probably should mix it up a little bit, or hey, there's this other thing that we need to share about, or how can we share this message in a more dynamic way other than just a pretty stock photo of campus and some text? Like, is there a more interesting way that we can do it? And then that gets them thinking of how can I use my skills as a student, right? To share this message that would be relatable to me. And then that also plays into the larger authenticity conversation that we're having, that because the students are creating the content, it's something that they themselves would consume, their peers will consume it, and it
Yeah,
will
that's right.
kind of feed itself in a way.
Yeah, they know what they like to consume, you know, and so they create it better than we can. But coming back to the authenticity piece, you've said that um, you know, there's an in-group and out-group dynamic. Can you kind of talk about what that is and why you know, why is it an important distinction?
Yeah. So that sort of idea, I'm going to put on my graduate student hat
Yes, please.
for a moment, if you'll indulge me. And that comes from organizational communication. And it's a concept that describes one's desire to be a part of something greater than themselves.
A
And
community.
yeah, a community, exactly. And so there's lots of different types of in group, out group. But on social media, you create something that people want to be a part of. Like you speak in maybe references that are really specific to your campus or your university or your institution or your state. I know, in Arkansas, we kind of have some quirky things about our state. And so we can rely on that a little
Please,
bit.
we all have the quirky things about all of our institutions.
Yeah. And so we can kind of rely on that a little bit, of like, more for like potential students of like, I don't quite understand that joke, but it looks like they're having a really great time sharing about it. And I want to understand that and I want to be a part of it.
Or maybe
Um,
they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's my kind of humor and that's my kind of people, right?"
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's where I want
Or,
to
yeah.
be.
Or it's
Yeah.
like making people feel seen. Like, oh, I didn't realize I'm actually a part of that community, or I found my people. And so creating some buzz around being a part of something is a big part of how you create this authentic feeling through social media. And from an institution, it can be tricky because there's lots of different constituents, like I said earlier. So you kind of have to understand the specific group
Yeah.
that you're trying to reach and create.
It's like lean into what makes you you. Actually, I love how you have your own sort of way of explaining it with the in-group out-group because you know, we just had an episode released with Safi Stevenson that we had this conversation, and you know, she was calling it like college ready versus student ready. It's like the college ready is more like, you know, are you ready for college and you're trying to tick off all these boxes, but the student ready is like, here, this is our community, this is our culture. If you are into learning and asking questions, then you know, this is a community for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
love
so
that.
yeah, so I love that it's bubbling up, those that way of thinking is bubbling up in different corners, and it's, you know, and people have different ways to talk about it, but what I love is it's all community driven, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're saying, you know, I choose myself to go to University of Arkansas because I'm looking at their social media presence and they're really speaking to like who I am, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess, that's sort of what we were talking about with the authenticity piece. But, how else do you present that? I mean, it does look like you're, student first. And like, do you have any other recommendations for us about like how we can really make that sing and do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Student first is definitely something that when I was at the business school, that was a big part of our strategy. Our marketing plan was to really market to students, mainly because the impending sort of enrollment crisis that is on the horizon within higher ed. We kind of want to, we were trying to kind of capitalize on attracting a lot of students.
We had one
But
thing. Oh, one thing you did say early in our earlier conversation, you were talking about hyper specific content.
yeah, yeah. So you can get really hyper specific. So like using like really niche references on your campus or something like that. So at the University of Arkansas, we're all our mascot is the Razorbacks. And in Arkansas, we do not have any professional sports teams. And so the Razorbacks are like a
A
cult,
professional
honestly,
sports
here.
team.
Yeah, it's not just a university thing. It's not just here in Fayetteville. It is the entire state. And as somebody who grew up in Arkansas, it is really, it is really an interesting study, in my opinion,
I
of
mean,
the
it's
fandom
like
of the Razorbacks. And so
it's like
we can
it's an identity, right? It's a
exactly,
culture. Yeah,
yeah. So
totally.
we can really capitalize on the Razorback sort of now, not the like branding or anything, because I think I would definitely get in like licensing prison for that. But like
Fair,
referencing the
fair.
hogs and
Yeah.
the everybody can get up on board with that in the state of Arkansas because we don't have anybody else. And so that's a really hyper specific example. Our alumni hop on that, our parents, our students, potential students.
So can you sort of define hyper specific for us? Like it's just to me it's like you're not trying to speak to everyone. You're just trying to speak to your people with your
Yeah,
content, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it's just creating something that only your students would really understand. So like inside jokes, essentially.
Yeah.
Like what is an inside joke on your campus? What's an inside joke in your state or your region? Or if you like for me right in this position, I work in the College of Arts and Sciences. So what is like an inside joke within those disciplines that we can capitalize on?
and
What
and
like
they exist. I feel like they
yeah,
exist for every
exactly.
yeah,
So
every
I did
community, every yeah.
when I was at the business school, and this was probably in 2022, whenever Taylor Swift Eras tour started, no, it was 2023. And everybody was doing the like posts with, if you're familiar with the artwork for that tour, it was all the different albums and the different color blocks. And everybody was saying, like, what era are you in? And so for that year, we did like the Walton College, the 2023 eras. And they were all like super specific. So it was like, there was one, it was a picture of a calculator, and it was in my gotta pass finite math era, or finite statistics, because it was a very difficult class for students in that college.
And everyone knew
Um,
about it, right?
and everybody knew about it.
Yeah.
And that slide specifically got reshared the most out of any of them because people really resonated with it. And then we did one that was we have a huge career fair twice a semester within the business school, and it was um, like career fair era or something like that. And we also did like hashtags like hashtag hire Walton, or I can't remember what it was, but we did really, really specific things that tied to our students' experiences on our campus or with our college. And that posted pretty well. But we also capitalized on the moment, right? The Eras Tour was like the biggest conversation on
Totally.
social
It's
media.
like a marriage of the two, right? It's like pop culture versus like it intersecting with your own culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you're familiar with that account that they post like really like aesthetic, picturesque pictures of like traveling and stuff, and then they have like the little quote in the middle. Um, oh, what's it called?
That could be like a number of them.
I know.
No, it's okay. I mean, yes, but I think we all have a picture in our head. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the account, but we did those with like um, pictures around campus, but this was on Labor Day weekend or the week of Labor Day. And so I said in the middle of it, at least it's a short week. And I posted it on Tuesday and it did really well too. And so that kind of spoke to not just the student experience, but also faculty, staff, alumni, people that, have regular jobs where they're thankful that it's a short week. And that was a way to sort of create some humor around a shared experience that's not just students, but it kind of tied it back to university because I had pictures of campus and our buildings and things like that.
Totally. I mean, that's smart. Like when you can capitalize on a moment or, like you said, a shared experience and make it in your voice, right? The voice of your school or college or university, coming back full circle, when you are a brand and you are trying to humanize your voice, we've established that having, people like the students tell the story and the students and your team show that like there are humans behind the brand, but it can be done, right? It's like you can be very personal and human and be a brand or a college or an institution, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, at the end of the day, it is just a social media post. And I know
No, it's true. Yeah.
it's so true. And just have to keep myself grounded of like, I overthink all this stuff so much. And I'm sure that a lot of, our colleagues around the country and the world that do the similar work also do because we care about our jobs and the messages that we're sharing. So I don't want to devalue what we do, but we kind of have to keep ourselves grounded with a reality check that it's just as an Instagram post. It's just a Facebook post. And if it doesn't work, move on. Like nobody's going to remember it or delete it,
Or
you know?
yeah. Or don't do it again.
Or don't do it again.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun to keep it fun, right? And my own social media, I get really burned out because I do it for work. And so what can I do to make this fun for me? And so what can we do to make this fun for us as professionals, but that also still share the message and don't devalue our institutions as places of higher education? There's a way to meld fun and sharing a message and also giving respect to the institutions that they're due. But showing some personality, I think, is not going to devalue your accounts. I think it will actually add a richness to it that people will appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we're trying to get across today for sure. Well, Grant, this is called Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. So I have to ask you, what is your confession?
I have to confess that the very first time I made like short form video was my very first day at the Walton College here at the University of Arkansas. I had never made a reel. I had never made a TikTok. I had never made any short form video. Very first day, it was like, okay, like we gotta post
trial
a
by
video.
fire. Yeah.
That was my very first time making short form video. I got hired and I had never made it before. But also like I'm a digital native, so like I just told myself, how hard could it be? Like
just do it. You just did it. How'd it go?
Oh, it was great. I don't remember what the video was, but it turned out great. And then I made many more after that. But that also kind of leads into like trying new things, right?
Yeah.
Like always be learning something different. There's always a skill in these apps and these platforms that we're not utilizing. And that's a way to keep it fresh, right? Like to make a new challenge. If you feel like you're in a rut, it means that you need to like make a turn. So, and try something different.
I love that lesson. Grant, thank you so much for spending the time to talk to me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.